Hi, ever wonder what it's like to work another profession or live in the underworld? Listen to unsuspecting riders give a 10 to 15 minute personal masterclass as I spontaneously interview them as they enter my taxi. I'm your host, Simon Rushton, and this is Taxi Chronicles. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have a lovely couple. I assume they are a couple. Yes. In the car. One's in the legal thing. I forgot what the other man, what the man does, but I'll let him introduce himself, or both of them, in a minute. So nice to have you here today.
Hello, it's very nice to be here.
Okay.
Hello everyone, how you doing?
Okay, so tell me, we'll start off with the lovely lady. What motivated you to get into law?
So, my name is Tiffany. I'm training to be a lawyer at the moment, but the other thing that I do is I work in prison, so I've always been involved in the legal sector in one way or another. I started life off as a musician, but then realised I probably wasn't going to be making very much money from the stuff that I was doing. And I was always interested in the law because that's how society is regulated. I find it fascinating that the law is what regulates our behaviour, even things like families, marriage, whether we do or don't break the law, what renders us criminals. I just find the whole thing in the abstract very interesting.
Okay, so you were explaining about the difference between criminal law and corporate law and the American system and our system. Can you just recap on that, because there's probably quite a few people who'll be interested to know?
Yeah, sure. So typically in America you have people who are criminal lawyers, but they categorize themselves as defense lawyers, so they only defend criminals or they only prosecute criminals. Whereas in the UK, if you're a criminal lawyer, generally speaking, you do both. You defend people and you prosecute people. I think that's better because it makes you a much better lawyer. You get to see both sides. You would know how to analyze a set of facts or legal problems and catch the pitfalls in any argument. I think it's much more interesting.
Do you get a choice on what case you take? Like, because if you could be both, you may say, I don't want to do defend today. I just want to, I'm annoyed with the wife, so I'm going to, take it.
It's a pretty common misconception, actually. It's what's known as the cab rank rule. So the principle is that if you're a criminal lawyer, you don't get to pick. You have to defend the guilty people. You have to prosecute the people that land on your plate. If a client comes to you and say, I want you to represent me, you represent them no matter what your personal opinions are of the case. So it doesn't matter if you're annoyed at the wife or you think he's a rascal or if you're pretty sure that he's guilty. So long as you know that they're not lying, and so long as you know that you're not putting someone on the stand to deliberately tell false truths, you have to do what you're told, basically.
So in cases of paedophilia,
yeah.
If you had, let's say you had a bad experience as a child, or something had happened for one of your children, and a case had come to you, could you say, no, I can't deal with this case because I feel I'd be biased?
If you felt that your personal biases would impact your treatment of the case or treatment of the client, then you would be able to excuse yourself from representing that person. But generally speaking, that would be an exception to a rule. And the main principle underlying that is that no matter what anybody's done, whether they're accepting that they're guilty or whatever else, that everybody, no matter what, is entitled to a fair trial and subject to due process. So lawyers are there in part to make sure that the courts treat them properly and that they go through the system in a fair, just way. So it's not necessarily about getting somebody off if they're guilty. It's making sure that a guilty person, if they've admitted their guilt, is treated fairly and properly, and that they're not being subject to some other kind of corruption or wrongdoing from the courts.
Okay, that's interesting. So what have you learned since you said you're just entering into this industry? What have you learned that you wish you knew when you had started?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I wish that I had learned that practicing law is very different to studying law. So if you're studying law right now and you think it's dry, actually it's much more interesting in practice. Seeing things in the flesh is it gives a greater meaning to it. So stick with it. In practice, I wish I had a greater attention to detail. The number of times where, you know, you've accidentally spelt a client's name wrong, for example, and you know the client really, that's going to be the simplest thing they'll look at and understand. And if you do it wrong, then it's really the wrong impression. So it's a simple tip, but it's something that I wish I could have appreciated before I started.
Yeah, no, I can see how that can work, because if my life's on the line and you can't get my name right.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah. I suppose you said you worked with prisons.
Yeah, so
what was that all about?
In my previous life, or rather now as a hobby, I'm a musician. I sing classically, but I run a charity called Sing Inside with some incredible colleagues, which brings singing workshops into prisons. And I was doing that before I was becoming a lawyer.
Really?
So
what, classical stuff into prisons?
Anything. So the music that we do ranges from 12th century choral music to show tunes to spirituals and pop songs, rock songs, whatever you name it, you can probably teach it.
Okay, that's interesting, because I just couldn't. Obviously, criminals are generally, well, the typical criminals. We won't talk about politicians and that, but working class. So I just don't. I'm just surprised that they'd be into the classical. But
yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of people have exposure to classical music in one way or another, even if it's just through adverts on TV or film scores or something like that. And they recognize particular tunes, and so if you can attach words to it or make that experience relevant in some way, you can say, actually, there's a lot more in your brain than you give yourself credit for. And that includes classical music.
So I'm thinking, because music makes a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It can either scare you like a thriller or some dramatization or an epic, or it's got that gangster lean of the music, and someone's just about to get on a drive-by kind of thing.
Yeah, and even the absence of music in a score can be so impactful. If you think of any scene in a TV series or a film where it's just silence and it's just the characters there, or a scene, that's notable too.
Have you worked with films before in music?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've recorded choral music which has then been used in films.
Okay. Any films or TV shows that we may have heard of?
I don't think so.
I've heard we've had a lot of BBC people in the taxi.
Yeah,
a lot of them, from set designers to people who ride Peaky Blinders.
Oh, very cool.
Things. Yeah, so I was just seeing what you're about. So what does the future hold for you?
Oh gosh, it's a big question. Well, first of all, I have to qualify as a lawyer, and then the future's open to whatever I want, I think.
Will you be staying in this country, or will you be...
I'm not sure. My lovely partner sitting next to me has got an international career ahead of him, and so we'll see where that takes us both. But London's the place for me for the next few years at least.
Okay. So bouncing over to your lovely partner, let's hear, what is this fascinating international career?
Oh no, it's nothing terribly exciting, frankly. I mean, I'm not the one who's doing the good work that Jivani's doing, at least in prisons, which is the thing that kind of I think is particularly inspiring, because as you said, it was more a matter of kind of it's what you raised actually. Like, how do you make music speak to a particular person? And I think that's a matter of duty, which I've always found quite inspiring. And in fact, seeing as we're in the interview scene, I'd like to turn it around to Jivani.
Kevlar jacket, right?
This Kevlar jacket. No, because I'm genuinely intrigued that you've raised a point which I've always wanted to ask in the year that we've been together, because today is the anniversary. Funnily enough, thank you very much.
Survived lockdown and everything.
Oh yeah,
lockdowns, that one.
She's got the patience of a saint. But yeah, it's like, have you found any particular musical styles? As you say, just as a matter of speaking to a particular individual, but have you found something works particularly strongly, or when you've not been able to kind of communicate with somebody, how have you managed to actually bring them round?
It's not so much using something that can bring someone round. It's often the product of a happy accident, that you've triggered something in someone, a memory, a feeling through the music that then allows them to have an emotional release of some kind. And actually that's a real privilege to watch in somebody, because it means that they've allowed themselves to be vulnerable, they've allowed themselves to connect the dots between what they're hearing and what they're feeling on the inside. And to have someone share that with you is really special. So just to give one example, the very, very first prison workshop I did back in 2014 was in Bedford Prison. And we were doing Danny Boy, you know, Londonderry, oh Danny Boy, dee 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 dee, and we were just doing the basic tune and teaching the words and doing louds and softs and thinking about the words and what they might mean and why is this melody so evocative. And actually the guys turned around and said, actually we just need a couple of minutes to gather ourselves, because this reminds me of my son who's no longer with us anymore. And you know, he was very emotional, and prison is a space in which men don't often allow themselves to be emotional for various reasons.
You're not meant to, is it? It's not a wise thing to do.
Yeah. Some of the time at least. And there are lots of pressures that I don't think we can ever really pretend to understand. And so it's not so much a case of finding something that opens the latch for everybody, but trying to find something which everyone can relate to in one way or another.
Have you ever had someone and you just thought, I can't help you?
Oh, no, there's never been anyone who's been beyond our help. Everyone gets into it in one way or another. I mean, in the very basic sense, the workshops that we provide with Sing Inside are a break from the monotony of the prison day. Prison is extremely boring. There's not very much going on. And so actually, if we can break up the day by injecting some energy and by allowing them to meet new people and humanizing them and not treating them as a number or judging them by the worst thing that they've done, which have landed them in this institution, then that's a real success. So you get some difficult characters, definitely. Behavioral issues are something that we talk about a lot. We've never felt unsafe, and we're very well looked after by the prison staff.
Oh, there's always a prison staff member there.
Oh yeah, always.
That's good. It's funny that you said about there's not much to do. So my friend, when he came out of jail, he said prison, what it does, it just wastes your time.
Yes, I totally agree.
You see how much you could achieve.
Yeah.
So now, you know, he's very focused. But then you do also, you get people who, they just, I don't know whether you can say they've got no hope, but they've allowed themselves to be in a rut.
Yeah.
Like a rat in a bucket.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of dead time in prison. And I think particularly right now during the pandemic, even more dead time, because mixing is more dangerous with chronic staffing issues. And if something goes wrong in one wing of the prison, that often means that the other wings have to be shut down because staff have to be funneled to a different area. It's a real problem. I mean, I'm glad for your friend that he's been able to find that focus out of it. I think for a lot of people, the prison system and the dead time that it has doesn't help them get out of from rock bottom, and it just keeps them there. Yeah.
Have you considered that what you do is part psychiatry?
Yeah, for sure. And rehabilitation is a word which is bandied around a lot, and something that we treat carefully because we don't know a huge amount about rehabilitation within our charity, and it's not something we set out to do so much. But we certainly have rehabilitative effects. So by validating someone's existence and giving them some praise and allowing them to have an outlet for some creative thought and emotional expression, you help to humanize somebody, and I think that helps them to gain some perspective. It helps them to see themselves as better than what they are often treated as within the prison system. So it definitely has benefits beyond just the singing, the things that we teach. It's very much a personal journey of self-confidence and self-worth that we try to inject in people. But what we do isn't formally psychiatry or rehabilitation in any kind of way. It just has those happy side effects. But that's, you know, just symptomatic of the very importance of the arts and the role that the arts have to play in these kinds of institutions.
So you've been doing that for 6 years?
Yeah.
You've got a good woman there, mate. Yes.
I mean, as I said, patience of a saint, and
You're not getting paid for that.
Too bloody right. Yeah.
It's something good. Okay, rounding up, my last question that I ask, and I will put this out to both of you, even though Mr. Kevlar jacket.
Yeah.
Palm that over to the missus. What's the impact you want to have on the world?
Oh, it doesn't have to be big. Make someone breathe easier, make someone smile. That's all you need to do. I think to have grand plans is to ignore the little impacts that you have every day.
Okay. Without you saying me too. Yeah.
Oh no, wouldn't be nearly as unimaginative as that. I need a silver tongue in order to get such an impressive girlfriend. I'd like to say giving back. Like, you know, my mum came here as an immigrant. Country's been incredibly generous to me, and I just want to do what I can to say thank you, whether or not that's through public service, or, you know, just kind of finding small ways to give back every day. I mean, as you said, you know, sort of, it's not just every day is a school day, but take every hour and every opportunity to do it. So that'll be my penny worth.
Okay, that's good. Well, I wish you well in your journeys of career, love, and travel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
We hope you liked that interview. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to get the latest daily episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economy and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources? Then listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you will hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m.